December 3, 2024. China's Ministry of Commerce published a document that took effect the moment it was signed. No grace period, no transition window, no warning for procurement teams. Gallium, germanium, and antimony could no longer leave China bound for the United States. Not a tariff, not a licensing delay. A ban, effective immediately. Within days, gallium prices on the Rotterdam market had jumped 17%. That was not panic. It was recognition by buyers who understood exactly what gallium is, that something had shifted. The phone in your pocket, the laptop you are working on right now, the radar system on every F-35 fighter jet in the U.S. Air Force, all depend on this metal. And the country that supplies 98% of the world's primary gallium just shut the door. There is one move inside this ban that almost no major outlet covered, and it is the part that changes the calculus for the next decade. We will get to it.
Gallium is not mined directly.
It occurs in trace concentrations inside bauxite ore, the same ore used to refine aluminium. To recover it, you need enormous volumes of bauxite, specialized chemistry, and the economic logic to bother. For most of the 20th century, that logic did not exist in most countries. China made a different calculation. Through the 1990s and 2000s, Chinese firms steadily expanded gallium recovery at their aluminium smelters, quietly, incrementally, without attracting much attention from Western governments. By 2024, according to the U.S. Geological Survey, China produced 98% of the world's primary low-purity gallium. Not a majority, not a dominant share, 98%. The United States last produced primary gallium domestically in 1987. For nearly 4 decades, the U.S. semiconductor and defense industries consumed gallium without producing a single kilogram of their own. The USGS classifies the United States as 100% net import reliant for this metal. This is the position Washington was in when Beijing delivered its December 2024 announcement. But what triggered that announcement, and what it contained beyond the headline ban, is where the real story begins. The actor who provoked China's response was not, as most coverage implied, the Trump administration. And the ban itself contained a second clause that was more consequential than the prohibition on the metal. We will come to both. On December 2, 2024, the U.S. Commerce Department's Bureau of Industry and Security added 140 Chinese semiconductor companies to its entity list, a designation that bars those firms from accessing American technology and manufacturing equipment. It was the most expansive move in a chip control campaign running since October 2022. It was also the last major foreign policy act of the Biden administration in the technology space. China's response came the following morning. The Ministry of Commerce issued Announcement Number 46. Gallium, germanium, antimony, and super-hard materials could not be exported to the United States. The announcement went further than any previous measure. For the first time, it invoked China's long-arm export control authority, stating that any organization in any country that transferred Chinese-origin gallium to a U.S. entity would be investigated under Chinese law. That clause closed a loophole that had been quietly used for more than a year. According to Stimson Center analysis of Chinese customs data, China's exports of germanium to the United States fell to near zero in 2024, while exports of germanium to Belgium rose 224% relative to 2022. The quantity that vanished from U.S.-bound shipments, approximately 5,900 kilograms, almost exactly matched the increase in Belgium-bound shipments. The material was reaching the United States through a third country. The December 2024 announcement made that route legally hazardous for any refiner willing to use it. What that long-arm clause means for European and Japanese refiners, and why it changes the strategic picture beyond the US, is something the semiconductor industry understood immediately. We will come to it. The long-arm jurisdiction clause is not symbolic. It means that any European, Japanese, or Canadian refiner that processes Chinese gallium and sells it onward to an American customer now faces potential exposure under Chinese law. The workaround the industry was quietly relying on was made significantly more dangerous.
Here is what gallium actually does in a weapons system. When gallium is combined with nitrogen, it forms gallium nitride, a compound semiconductor that handles higher voltages, higher temperatures, and higher frequencies than conventional silicon. According to the Center for Strategic and International Studies, gallium nitride radar modules can track targets at nearly double the range of older systems. Every advanced radar currently entering U.S. service, on F-35 jets, on Patriot missile defense batteries, on terminal high-altitude area defense systems, on dozens of naval vessels, depends on gallium nitride chips. A top Raytheon executive stated in 2023 that GaN is, in his words, foundational to nearly all the cutting-edge defense technology the company produces. China's December 2024 announcement was explicit on this point. The Ministry of Commerce framed the prohibition specifically as preventing gallium from reaching U.S. military end users. This was not primarily an economic measure. It was strategic. A 2022 analysis cited by USGS experts found that a 30% disruption to gallium supply could generate a roughly $600 billion decline in U.S. economic output, approximately 2% of GDP. The U.S. defense supply chain for gallium nitride has no domestic alternative at scale. Nearly 40 years without primary domestic production is not a gap that can be closed quickly. And then came the move that almost no reporting covered. In January 2025, China added gallium extraction technology itself to its export control list, not just the metal. The processing knowledge required to recover gallium from bauxite at commercial scale. According to CSIS analysis, this was the most consequential escalation in the entire sequence, because countries now building gallium recovery capacity outside China face an obstacle in acquiring the most efficient refining methods. The ban on the raw metal was the headline. The ban on the technology was the architecture. Whether any Western nation can rebuild a gallium supply chain in time to matter, and what the CSIS brief found when it ran that question against actual production timelines, is where this story ends. And the answer is not what the optimistic briefing suggested. In November 2025, China suspended the gallium export ban for 1 year as part of bilateral trade negotiations. Markets framed this as de-escalation. It was not. The suspension was temporary, conditional, and subject to renewal at Beijing's discretion. The long-arm jurisdiction clause remained intact. The transshipment prohibition remained intact. The technology controls remained intact. The valve was opened slightly. The infrastructure to close it again is permanent. Here is what this story is actually about, and it is bigger than gallium. For decades, Western industrial policy treated supply chain concentration as an economic problem, a matter of price and efficiency, correctable through market signals. What China's gallium controls demonstrated, across 3 escalating rounds from 2023 to 2024, is that supply chain concentration is a geopolitical instrument. Beijing did not build its gallium monopoly as a deliberate weapons program.
It built it because aluminium production was economically rational, and gallium recovery was a byproduct. But once the concentration existed, it became leverage, deployed precisely and proportionally in response to U.S. chip controls. The U.S. Department of Energy announced up to $6 million in 2025 to fund domestic gallium recovery research. That figure is a fraction of what the problem requires. Restarting primary production for the first time in almost 40 years is not a research problem. It is an infrastructure problem, measured in years and billions, not months and millions. The most advanced European alternative, a Greek facility targeting 50 tons of gallium per year by 2028, with production beginning from 2027, would represent roughly 7% of annual global demand in a best-case scenario. U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan said at a CSIS event in late 2024 that there are other sources of gallium in the world. He was technically correct. What he omitted, and what CSIS documented in detail, is that the upstream processing infrastructure and refining technology required to replace China's 98% share of primary supply does not exist outside China and cannot be built on the timelines that the current trajectory demands. Gallium is not scarce. It is abundant in the Earth's crust. What is scarce is the infrastructure, the investment, and the political will to produce it anywhere other than where it has already been produced for 30 years.
The metal inside your phone's chips has always had a supply chain. Most people never thought about where it came from. The people who make decisions about where defense contracts go, where semiconductor fabs are built, and where critical mineral funding flows, they thought about it either too late or not enough. 40 years of optimized global efficiency, with no consideration of strategic concentration, has created a class of dependency that no tariff can resolve and no emergency stockpile can sustain. The question this story leaves genuinely open, and one where serious analysts disagree, is whether Western supply chain diversification can move fast enough to matter. One camp argues that price signals, government incentives, and allied coordination can unlock new production within a decade. The other camp argues that China's January 2025 technology controls mean non-Chinese producers will remain structurally disadvantaged even as they scale up, and that the dependency is effectively permanent unless Western governments treat this as a wartime mobilization problem, not a market correction. Drop your take in the comments. Which camp does the evidence support? If you want to understand how critical mineral supply chains are reshaping geopolitics, not in theory, but in practice, subscribe. That is what this channel is for. Our previous video, Russia's worst nightmare, the new China-Europe rail route, covers how China is using physical infrastructure as geopolitical leverage, building trade corridors that reduce Russia's strategic value while bypassing Western-controlled shipping routes. Both videos are about the same underlying strategy: China deploying the assets it has spent decades quietly building, physical routes and raw material monopolies, as instruments of geopolitical pressure. Watching both gives you a complete picture of how that strategy is being executed simultaneously across different domains. It is on the screen right now.